Hi guys, and welcome back to Pass and Move. For today's episode, we will be doing Southampton for the tactical and team guide. Now, of course, the original plan was just to go around the top 5 leagues in Europe and just pretty much cover the top 4 teams in each league, and we've pretty much finished that. So now we're just taking on requests. We have gotten a request for Southampton and Celtic, which will be the next episode. But if you do have any requests, then definitely please do leave it in the comment section, and we'll get around to it without a doubt. If you need any help with how to set up your team, basically, and that's how we're going to do it today. So I have literally just started this career. I haven't planned anything. The whole reason is to try and go through this together, just as just to show you how I would go about my business when I first start a career. So one of the first things I do, like I always say, is to see who I can trust, whose judgment of ability I can trust. So it looks like our head of youth development is our best bet. Our assistant manager doesn't seem too good, I guess, at judging ability, so we will be trusting Matt Hale instead, who has some pretty good attributes, judgment of ability and potential, both 16, and so we'll have to try and trust his judgment when we're judging our players, I guess. So the other thing we can do is quickly set up the tactics. It's naturally set in a 4-3-3. I think that's what Southampton's team would suit as well. My assistant manager recommends a 4-4-2 though, so we'll have a look at the squad in just a second and decide on what instruction we should go with. So let's set up the 4-4-2 here and see whether my assistant has any truth. If there's any truth to what he's saying. So what we always do in our videos is actually give you a possession-based tactic example and a direct style of play tactic example, and that way you have the two directions to take your team in. You don't want to obviously use both instructions. There's too many, and you should be trying to build a certain style of play rather than training your players to do both. Also, you buy certain types of players and whatnot, so you can't really do both tactics. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. So we'll have a look at the squad. Should actually have a quick look at the under 23s and under 18s, see if there's anyone who's ready for the first team but isn't actually included there, and we'll be doing that in reverse in just a second. I'll show you what I mean. So Moez, according to our head of youth development, Matt Hale, where are you? There you go. He's only ready for Sky Bet League 1, so not ready for the first team. Josh, Championship. Sam, Championship as well. So these two players here are pretty close, but unfortunately they're just not ready just yet. So we'll have a look at who's in the first team, who shouldn't be in the first team is what I meant. So Alex McCarthy, Championship player, get rid of him. We're just going to move him to under 23s for the sake of it, but you should probably sell him. Matthew Target, Championship player as well. I actually keep my eye on Matthew Target. I think he's ready for the Premier Division based on my football knowledge, but we are trying to trust our head of youth development, so let's move him to under 23s as well. Jack Stephens, another Championship player, and it looks like we're slowly starting to trim our squad, which is kind of good. We want to have a squad of 22 players. I think that's a healthy number. That way you have a first 11 of leading players or star players or even world class players, and you have a backup 11 of youngsters with potential who can become those type of players. So it looks like we're suddenly short of numbers. We need 22, but we've only got 19. That means we need 3. So we'll have a look at where we're missing numbers and where we're not. So let's sort out the ability in accordance to the best in the club. Let's find our best 11 and try and make a tactic out of it. See whether the 4-3-3 is really where our players actually suit or not. Just having a quick look at the best positions here, it kind of looks like it is the 4-3-3. We've got too many good wingers, which is only a good thing, really. Van Dijk, if that's even how you say his name. It looks like he's an incredible central defender. Ball playing defender is decent too. I guess playing him as defensive centre back is probably the best bet because he doesn't have concentration or decision making. But he's a decent ball playing defender and a central defender too, so it's just up to you how you want to play him. Tadic, a winger, attacking midfielder at the same time. Sufyan, a winger. Romeo, a defensive midfielder and a central midfielder. We've got an inside forward and a striker at the same time in Gabbiadini. Redman, winger on both sides. Bertrand, of course, left back and a centre back, but probably best as a left back yet. Doesn't have the jumping reach or the heading or anything like that. Rodriguez, striker, left winger. Okay, so I can see why my assistant manager would recommend a 4-4-2. I'm pretty sure this is a decent shout for direct style play, so we'll probably use that. And this team might actually suit the 4-2-3-1 more than the 4-3-3, but we don't really have a lot of attacking midfielders, for example. I mean, there are players who can play in attacking midfield. I'm tempted to play that one, because that way you can play Tadic as an attacking midfielder and that'd be great, and you'd still have Buffon. Alright, so we'll be doing that. I think that's what we do. You could play the 4-3-3, but the 4-2-3-1 is your best bet. Now, normally I would recommend starting with a 4-1-4-1 and then pushing up your wingers up to a 4-2-3-1 when you're trying to win. But I think because you have inside forwards, you can't really play them as a 4-4-2. I mean, they're capable of playing as wingers, but their best positions are as inside forwards. So I think that's what we'll be going with. So we'll go with the mentalities and the team instructions, and we'll get back to get to know our players a little bit better, and then sort out the roles. So for the 4-2-3-1, which will definitely be our possession-based tactic, like I always say, counter, standard and control are all very good shouts for your mentalities if you try and keep possession. You can definitely use other mentalities, but these three are your best, and we'll be going with the most attacking of them all, which is control. In terms of instructions, shorter, lower tempos, shorter passing, being more expressive, and roam from positions are my preferences. I don't like to have too many instructions, but if you are the type of person who likes a lot of instructions and you like to be detailed and you like to be very specific about how you want to see your team play, you can definitely get rid of being more expressive. Retain possession is a very good shout. Work ball into the box and playing out defense are very good for possession based sides. Look for overlap is a decent shout. Getting stuck in to win the ball back and using title marking, as well as closing down your opposition goalkeeper from passing short to his defenders, is really good. Closing down more, a higher line, are very good shouts as well. Using offside trap will help that higher line as well. That way you're winning back possession, and that way you have possession more than your opposition. In terms of width, you can pretty much keep it as is. You naturally go a little bit narrower when you go shorter passing, as you can see here. But I would say if you went all out narrow, even fairly narrow, it's a little bit better because you have a better team shape, as well as your players are closer together. That way they can find each other better, that way possession's kept better and things are taken over nicely. But for the sake of the video, we're doing my instructions, which would be those. I'd just like to mention, like I always do, that you can definitely have 60% possession with these instructions, just as you will with the the 14 or so instructions as well. You could do it either way. It's just about preferences and how you like to see your team play. So that's for the 4-2-3-1. With the 4-4-2, everyone already knows this. Countering with the 4-4-2 is great, as well as playing on attacking mentality. But again, any other instructions will do just fine as well. So let's go with attacking. In terms of instructions, it's pretty much I kind of like the opposite. So I like to play a higher tempo. I like to play more direct. I play more expressive and roam from positions, which is the ones I keep still. I like to play no matter what my team is. I like them to have creative freedom and freedom of movement as well. But again, you can change this around to be more instructive. So getting rid of the roam from positions. If you cleared the ball to flanks and ran at the opposition defense, these two are very good shouts for playing directly. I really love them when I do play direct style of play. But you can of course do other things like pass into space and hit early crosses or decent shouts. Shoot on sight can encourage your team to just shoot whenever when they're playing directly and going on the counter. They're not trying to overbuild, for example. But just bear in mind it's probably best saved for the last 10 minutes or so of a game when you're trying to win. Otherwise, just keep an eye on your team basically, because they might just shoot stupidly basically. In terms of your defensive line, you don't really need to do too much here, but if you wanted to, you can draw in your opposition by playing a deeper line. That way you can hit them on the counter and pass in the space, and hit early crosses would really help with that. You can close down less to even draw in a deeper line as well. These two pretty much as is. Tackling, you can stay on your feet, that way you have a better team shape. Of course, closing down less and playing a deeper line also helps that. In terms of your width, you naturally go wider like I mentioned, so as you can see here. But if you wanted to go all out to really unsettle your opposition team, you can play all the way wide as well. So yeah, well, you don't need to necessarily use all of the instructions. You can use some of them, you can try and test them and see what you like most. These are just the ones that I've tried and tested and like most as well. So now that we know what instructions and mentalities we're using, what formation we're using, we can get back to knowing our players a little bit more, go through them one by one, see what they're comfortable with, and that way we can choose our roles a little bit more wisely. So In terms of numbers, you're definitely short, but with a budget of 24 million, you should be okay. You're pretty much in the clear with the wages as well. You've got about 200k to spend, more like 150 to be honest. But basically, the point is that you've got money to spend. You could probably bring in some loanies as well if necessary. You can rely on your youth as well. They were ready for the championship, so they're not that far off. But it's just better off to bring in players who are ready for the first team. Just send those players out on loan. When they come back, they can be ready for the first team. So, in terms of numbers, goalkeeper Fraser Forster. He is a good player for most division sides only, according to Matt Hale. I would say keep an eye on that judgment, because I think Forster eventually becomes a leading player. I mean, he doesn't have potential, but I think your head of youth development's judgment is a little skewed. But if we are really going to trust him, you know, all out, I'm just trying to see how long he's been there. Alright, he's been at the club for 3 years, so his judgment should be solid. It's not like he's trying to get to know him a little bit more or anything. So I would say you should probably bring in a leading goalkeeper for the division. Forster's a decent shout. He is a decent goalkeeper, England international as well. He's really not a bad goalkeeper attributes wise either. Look at the reflexes and aerial reach, he's great. But of course, in the end of the day, it does come down to ability. So you might want to bring in a very, a leading or even star player for the division if you have the money. But if you want to trust Forster, just bring in another youngster with potential. A goalkeeper can eventually take over Forster is a decent shout too. In terms of fullbacks, you've technically got the numbers, but what I do want to point out is that Martin is probably better as a central defender. He's a decent central defender, but he's also a decent fullback as well. The only issue is that we might want to play as wingbacks, and if we're playing on wingbacks on support or on attacking, he doesn't really have the natural attributes for it. So I would say play him as a central defender. You do need the numbers there anyways, and just look into bringing in a right back. So he's out for a while anyways, with 3 to 4 months, so just bring in another youngster with potential. Cedric is a good player who can potentially move on to being a leading player for the division, so you don't want to stop that potential. I think he expects to be a first teamer. Yeah, he does. So it might make more sense. He is a Portuguese international. He is a really good player. So possibly just bring in another youngster potential who can compete with him. In terms of your left back spot, Bertrand is pretty much holding that down. He is a good player for most division sides. Normally with my fullbacks, like I always say, normally I would sell any players with good ability so I can break that barrier and try and find leading players. But unfortunately in the fullback positions it's kind of tough unless you've got like 80 million in the bank and you're willing to spend all of it on just Alaba. You're really not going to get a world class or a top fullback. It's pretty much tough until the regens start to kick in. So I would say keep Bertrand. He's a really good wing back, England international as well. And don't necessarily sell any of your players until you're 100% sure that you can find better. I've made a mistake before where I've sold a player because I thought he's not good enough for the team. We're trying to get leading players, and then I find out, wait a minute, there's no leading players who are realistically can come to our squad. Either way, you do need a youngster with potential in the left back spot because you're short on it. If we do count Martin as a centre back, you've got 3 of them in, these 3 basically, Yoshida as well. But you would need a 4th just in case, and I would suggest a youngster with potential. Martin is a decent player for the division, so you might actually want to consider selling him in the January transfer window, but I think you just bought him, so it's a bit tough to get rid of him. You did just sign him for free. I think you could maybe sell him in the transfer window, the January one. So Virgil here is a leading player for the division, so he's definitely a starter for your team. As it says here, his weakest attribute is inability to concentrate, which we pointed out earlier. So I think playing him as a defensive centre-back is your best bet. Yoshida is a decent player for the division only, so again, you want to improve on him. He also is susceptible to injury, so just keep an eye on that. If he gets injured too often, you might want to move him on. Let's actually have a look at his history. How long has he been at Southampton for? He's been on for a while, so you could probably comfortably sell him for 9 million and probably bring in someone better. So I would say your first 2 centre-backs are not too good enough. Virgil's definitely good enough, but the backups should only be backups, and in fact I would say try and get rid of them completely, because you can bring in youngsters with potential to become better. There's plenty of central defenders out there that you can bring in for good money. Just make sure before you sell these guys that you can bring in these players. So if you're playing the 4-2-3-1, you kind of do have too many central midfielders, Even if you're playing the 4-4-2, you do have too many, but the thing is that you can push some of them on, if you're playing the 4-2-3-1, into the attacking midfielder spot. And you know, if you're playing the 4-4-2, you could possibly sell one of them, and that way you can bring in another striker, for example, or look at your wingers if they're good enough and whatnot. So let's go through the central midfielders first. Romeo should be one of your starters. He's a good player for the division, and he can possibly squeeze into being a leading player. Stephen Davis is just a good player, so he should be a backup. Pierre is a player with potential, so is James Ward-Prowse. And Classy is a decent backup as well. So again, it's just about breaking that barrier from being a decent, you know, mid-table team to becoming a Europa League or possibly a Champions League contender as well. And, you know, go all the way to becoming a league title winner. In terms of your wide men, so you've got a lot of them. Some of them can play attacking midfielder, like we already mentioned. Tadic can do that comfortably. I would suggest playing him there. I'm not really a fan of playing advanced playmakers out wide. And some of these can play as strikers. So Jeremy apparently can play as a fullback as well, but his positioning and marking is not good enough. I would say don't play him there. He's more attacking, so definitely play him as a winger. He's only considered a decent player, so again, not good enough. We're trying to push on, we're trying to get good players, and then after a while get leading players, and then after a while get star players and world class and so on. Gabbiadini is a winger, but apparently also a striker. Pretty decent as an inside forward, but if we need him, we can play him as a striker as well. He's really that flexible. He's not like, you know, any weaker in either position. I think he's 24, so he could kind of run out of potential, but he could squeeze into being a leading player. I would say try him out for a year at least. Can't really get rid of him anyways because you just signed him. Jay Rodriguez, good player for the division. And Tadic, he's only good, but he's 4 stars. I think you should keep an eye out on this. I'm not sure that's necessarily true. Boufal, only a good player as well. So you've got a lot of good players, ready-made wingers. Boufal is the only one with potential. So just keep an eye on that. Basically see who you want to keep, who you want to sell. If we are playing a 4-2-3-1, you've got the perfect numbers for it, because Tadic will be the advanced playmaker. So that way you've got 2 right wingers, 2 left wingers, and you're sorted. And you just slowly have to try and transform them into becoming leading players. But yeah, inside forward is probably your best bet. Jeremy, how long are you out for? 9 to 11 months. He's out for ages. You should probably bring in not a youth player, sorry. Someone on loan, because he's out for the whole season basically. Sofyan, 2 to 3 months. 3 to 4 months. Alright, so just keep your eye out on those players. You might want to bring in short-term loans for Martin and Sofyan. In terms of your strikers, I don't think they're good enough. So you've got Long, who's probably just a decent player. He is. And you've got Charlie Austin, who's probably a decent... No, he's a good player for most division sides as well. So he should be a starter. But I would say you need to sell Long and bring in a ready-made striker. If you sell Long for 9.5 million, it'd be really great. I mean, you bought him for 12. If you sell him for 9.5, that's not too much of a hit. He's on 60k wages. You can definitely bring in the better striker. A leading striker as well. Just make sure, again, like I always say, just make sure you've got players you can actually bring in. He's got incredible work rate. That's incredible. That's a lot. 20. Anyways, so as you can tell, you shorten numbers in some areas. We mentioned the goalkeeper, we mentioned the centre back, we mentioned the fullback as well, and that should add up to your 22 players. So now that we know our players a little bit better, we can start to do the roles a little bit better as well. And I think it's pretty straightforward. So you want an advanced playmaker on attack here. You do want an inside forward here and an inside forward here. Just bear in mind that when you do play Jeremy, then he should be playing as a winger. Just make sure you do that. So we will want to play a wing back on attack here to complement that, and a wing back on support here to complement your inside forwards. That way you've got these players sorted. In terms of your defense, you should probably play them both as defensive centre backs. I don't think any of them are really that good as central defenders. I think Yoshida maybe. Yoshida does have decent mentals, but he's probably better off as a defensive centre back, like it says as well. So if we do that, it's probably best. But you do want to probably eventually move into central defenders, and probably even in one ball playing defender, just to add to this possession-based type of team. Because, you know, defensive centre backs just kick the ball up basically. Now, I would normally recommend the central midfielder on defend and deep line playmaker on support to complement the 4-2-3-1. These two midfield duo definitely have to be defensive minded, because otherwise they get exposed. The top four are too attacking and you get exposed in these areas here, here and here. So a defensive duo here will definitely help you. But in terms of the squad itself, it doesn't look like you've got a player who's really capable of that. I think only Romeo is capable of playing a central midfielder on defend. He'll do an incredible job there. So you might want to look into bringing him back up for him. But if you're playing other players there instead, a deep line playmaker on defend and a roaming playmaker is a decent shout as well. Just bear in mind you might be exposed on occasion. But yeah, we are definitely playing Romeo as one of the starters, so I think just for the sake of the video, deep line playmaker on support, central midfield on defend makes sense. In terms of your striker, both are kind of attacking roles, but we do need a support role because we're playing a lone striker. So Shane Long apparently can play as a complete forward on support. He does have a lot of good attributes where it works for him, but some of these attributes like strength, composure and long shots aren't too good, but he should be decent. He will be playing with Charlie Austin more often anyways. Target man on support is his, one of his best roles. I'd argue it's better than an advanced forward. A little bit, I suppose. Actually, advanced forward is probably better. Doesn't really have the acceleration and pace, but everything else really suits him. But we can't play target man if we are playing possession based, so unfortunately he will have to play as a complete forward on support, which he does a little bit better than Long. But again, they're kind of rough around the edges, I'd say. So complete forward on support, and this is how your team should look in the end. With the 4-4-2, it's kind of straightforward. A target man on support on one end, and advanced forward on attack on the other end. You want to eventually work towards a poacher, just because the target man and poacher duo really works incredibly well. But just for now, because your team suits advanced forward on support, that's pretty much what you should do. A winger on attack here, we don't really want to play as a wide midfielder or defensive winger or even wide playmaker. All of those don't really suit direct style of play. Winger's your best bet, and you do have players capable of it. You'll just kind of have to bear in mind your inside forwards. So, for example, Jeremy's already a winger. Manolo Gabbiadini will have to be retrained. If you play him, you can't retrain him as a right winger because he's left-footed. He'll cut inside from a right wing anyways, so you might want to retrain him as a left winger instead. And the same goes with anyone else. So if you say Jay Rodriguez, he's right-footed, so you want to play him as a right wing instead. So you just need to be retrained basically, and hopefully they should get the job done until you bring in better players who are more suited. This team definitely suits possession style of play more than anything else. So again, with the defensive centre backs for your central defence, and we've pretty much sorted everything other than midfield, and this is where you have a decision to make. So you do have a lot of deep line playmakers, so deep line playmaker on defend will be great. It's perfect for the direct style play. A box-to-box midfield is eventually what you want to work towards, but I think with the players you have, a roaming playmaker might suit best, and if we are playing Romeo, then we'll have to have a look at what he can do. He can definitely play as a deep line playmaker. He's one of those midfielders that can just about play anything, but I think probably ball winning midfielder on support is your best bet when you try and play him. That would be a decent shout as well. That's a decent combo, but you do want to work towards the box midfielder eventually. So let's just put that down as is like that, and that's how your team should look. Just bear in mind when you're playing certain players, you might have to tweak the rules a little bit. Just make sure the balance is there and the balance is right. So yeah, let's have a look at the youngsters to just conclude this video pretty much, who you should keep an eye on. So we already got the under-23s and the under-18s here. Callum Slattery seems to be an incredible wonder kid according to the potential ability. It says he's just a promising midfielder, but really with the determination of 20, he should fulfill his potential, barring any injuries, and just make sure you send him out on good loan, on some good loans basically. He's pretty much comfortable with any role apparently, but whether he can do those roles is a different issue. I'd say advanced playmaker is probably his best one. If you are playing the 4-3-1, you might want to consider training him from now as an attacking midfielder. Winger Josh Sims is a decent shout too. Everyone from here till about maybe here. So you've got a lot of the youngsters coming in, and a lot of them would suit your team and slot in seamlessly. Goalkeeper, box-to-box midfielder, central midfielder, all of these players, great. Just make sure you send them out on loan. Some of them will fulfill the potential, some of them will exceed it, some of them will fall horribly below it as well. So just keep all of that in mind. Some of these players will also exceed expectations and might become your first team as well. So don't dismiss any of your players. try and send them out on loan as much as possible, give them a lot of game time. Once they're ready for the first division, just squeeze them right in. It's the only reason why I'm not playing Josh Sims in the first team, or someone like where's he gone, Matthew Target. They're really close, they're championship players. I mean, they're 2.5 stars, so they're already considered to be fairly good ratings for the senior team. It's just that they're not ready for the division yet. They'll probably do okay. It's just that I like to make sure they're ready for the first division or the Premier League first before I do actually play them in the first squad. So yeah, that will be all for today's episode. So if you did enjoy it, then please do hit the like button and subscribe for more daily Football Manager 2017 content. And as always, thank you all for watching.